Okay, so today this first video is on Multiview number 1, and these are the multi-views that I'm taking you guys over to my teacher page while I'm talking about this. But these are the multi-views that will be graded for accuracy. So hopefully the comments that were provided on the first three, which were all on Multiview Day 1 examples, have helped in understanding some things that are going well and some mistakes that need to be probably corrected. So again, these are for accuracy, and I'll explain a little bit more about that later on. So again, you can see that we have Multiview 1 and 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then finally 6 and 7. 5 is a camera, and don't start that or 6 and 7 until I provide you guys with a metric template, because all three of these are in metric. So if you do finish 1 and 2 and you want to go ahead and glance at 3 and 4, you absolutely can. But there is some changes that will happen along the way and some additions along the way. So again, I have also provided, again, this is when you pull that up on the teacher site under Multiview 1 and 2. This would be number 1, this would be number 2, and that's exactly what you will be drawing. So this is going to start off with number 1. And right here, I have a printed, 3D printed example of number 1. I need to do this one again in a different color so it comes out a little bit better. But the one thing that people tend to make a mistake, because there are angles in this, and there's areas like right here where I would see that from the top view, but I also see this slope from the front. And then also along here, I do see this angle from the front view, but I also see it from the side, at least as a flat face. So that's something to consider, and it comes together probably easier than you think. The third thing, the biggest mistake I see that tends to be made in this, is that the base shape of this is a rectangle. And so if you approach this, it's a 4-inch by 6-inch rectangle. If you approach this whole drawing from the standpoint of rectangles and you use the offset tool, which is what I'm going to use for the most part, and trim, it comes together really easy. But the thing to note is that both sides here are completely flat. Okay, so there's no angle on the sides. The angles are going to be here in the center. So again, I don't need these what do you call them, yellow boxes anymore. So anyhow, if I look at either of these, same drawing, one is shaded, one is not shaded. Again, if you have trouble visualizing, my recommendation is shade. Other couple of things that I've been seeing, you do want to make sure that you are drawing your object on this object line layer up here, which is white. Construction lines, again, are only helper lines that are there to help you align things. And so those should be missing or deleted when you finish, or you can just turn it off to print it or to screenshot it. And then finally, dimension lines, which are this pink color, purplish. These are only used for text, okay? So on this drawing, I look and I see that the base shape of this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 by 4. And the height, if I count, I always look to maximums first, is 1, 2, 3, 4. So all I'm going to do now is start, and I'm going to start with the front view, drawing something that's 6 inches wide and 4 inches tall. Okay. Again, I always say if you don't have to draw something twice, copy it, just so you don't fat finger a key or something like that. But if you would prefer to draw the line, then that's fine as well, because this top line is also going to be 6. Okay. So again, we're starting with the front view. And now when I look at the front of this, I can see that if I come over 2 inches from the left, something happens. Or I'm sorry, 2 inches from the left, something happens. 2 inches from the right, something happens. Okay. And what is that thing that's happening? It's going up 3 units. So what I'm going to do is I want to get myself to this point, and for that I'm going to use the offset tool, or just hit letter O and then space bar. Okay. And in order to offset, remember what it's going to ask you. It's going to say, what's the distance? So I'm going to type in 2. And I'm going to click and click and click and click. Okay. So what I've done now is I've segmented this. I've created this center section. So I've got 2, 2, and 2 in the center. Now I'm going to deal with the bottom because I look and what happens from the bottom, if I come up 1, it goes across horizontally. So what I'm going to do now is do another offset, but I'm going to type in 1 and I'm going to come up from the bottom. Okay. And when I look at this, it kind of looks like an upside down T. So in order to make this front into an upside down T, I have to do some trimming. In this case, you could use the trim button up here, or I do TR spacebar, and then right click. And I can see that no line, this does not come down below that 1-inch horizontal line, nor does this, nor does that. So hopefully if you look at this now, you can see that I've created this entire upside down T over here, the portion that was in purple on the front. If I come back again and I look and I say, okay, something's happening on the top. I'm not going to worry about any of these angles, but I can see from this top right corner, if I go over 1 and up 1, then that puts me at this point. And the same is true for the left, even though we can't see it as well. So what I'm going to do now is offset both sides 1 inch, and I'm going to offset the top 1 inch. I can see what's happening in that drawing up above is there's a notch that's missing out of it, right? We've removed this part. So all I have to do now is hit trim, TR space, right click right away, and now I can remove this and this. And again, now I can go ahead and get rid of that and that and that and that and that. Okay. And these two lines are not there if you look up. Okay. So I've pretty much figured out the whole thing. And now where you look at this angle, it connects from 2 over and 1 up to the intersection of this notch, right? Which is 1 over and 1 down. So all I have to do now is go from this intersection to this intersection and the same on the other side. So I'm just going to draw a line from right here to right here. And I'm going to draw a line from right here to right here. Okay. And my front view is completed. I could have done this in a different way and taken it a little bit more step by step, which would have eliminated some trimming. But if I were to have gone over 6, then I could have gone up 3, over 1, up 1, over, I have to go back and check, 4 along the top, down 1. See, every time I'm going in the X or Y direction, I've come in and my green dashed polar line is on. Okay, oops, I said 4. If I was continuing that, I would go down 1, over 1, then connect the dots. Okay. Now this wouldn't have helped me that much. Still, when I get to the middle, I have to do some offsetting if I want to. But I can show you another thing, which is if you were to go ahead and lock, so you can come up here and you can go ahead and lock a layer. And I'll show you why, because we never draw lines on top of lines unless you lock a layer. When I click that lock button on object lines, you can see that this dimmed. Okay, so if I wanted to do that, one thing I can do is go to a construction line layer so I can see very clearly that my line color is different. And I need to go ahead and locate a couple of points, right? I need to locate this point right here, which just happens to be 1 inch over. So I could draw a construction line 1 inch over. And I could do the same thing, draw a construction line 1 inch over. And right here, I want to go up 1 and over 2. So I could just come over here and go up 1 and over 2. You guys learned the mirror command a while ago, and this would be an easy place to use it. I could just click this and go from midpoint to midpoint, and I don't want to delete my source object. Okay, and now what I can do is come back to my construction lines and kind of fill in the gaps. So I can say, all right, or I'm sorry, to my object lines. So I could now unlock them, and I can see I have these yellow endpoints. right? So now what I can do is just go from here. Oop, I didn't switch my layer. So I need to come back to object lines. I can go now from here to here to here. So I'm just looking at these endpoints, and here to here to here, okay? We don't want to leave these construction lines on, so the easiest trick is go ahead up to the layers, use the light bulb and turn your object lines off. Sometimes you get this pop-up menu. Delete those construction lines, and come back and turn your object lines back on. Oh, and you can see there's one thing I missed, right? Which is that this line should go from here to the perpendicular and from here to the perpendicular. So either way got me to the same point. Okay, this was kind of a more literal version. This was just using the offset tool. All right. So now what I'm going to do is go ahead and draw the top, and then I'll draw the side. Again, my request is that you guys use construction lines to just go ahead and create some alignment so that, and this will help you. This is kind of like plugging in the answer back in the problem in math. Because if the width of this object is 6, it doesn't matter if it's different. It is not different from the top or from the front. 6 is 6. So in this case, if I look at the base of this, again, we said that it is a 6x4 object. So I can go over 6, up 4, over 6, and over 4. Okay, and I'm going to copy this just to show you the same thing that I did with the construction lines in this case. But the overall object is the same. I don't need this construction line anymore, so I want to delete it. So this is the method of offsets, and this is going to be the use of construction lines. So I need to find a location right here that is how far over. It's 2 inches over. Same thing right here. 2 inches from this point is the start of this intersection. 1 inch from this point is the start of the intersection over here. So all I'm going to do is offset 2 inches, and I can go that way and go that way, and that's created a 2-inch portion along the top. I'm not going to see slope from this. Now I can go ahead and offset 1 for this back portion, because when I come in 1, oops, here we go. There I am. Okay, and again, really all of these are construction lines. They're not part of the drawing. So I could, just to remind myself, match properties and go ahead and select these. These won't stay here. Okay, so now what happens if I come over 2 in the front and over 1 in the back? So over 2 in the front and over 1 in the back, and over 2 in the front and over 1 in the back. I've now gone ahead and completed the object. So we delete the construction lines. Oops. This is sometimes why I just turn the layer off, like the object lines off, and that's what we have. And if I rotate this 3D object along here and I look at it from the top, really smooth there, that should be what I see. Okay, oop, there we go. All right, now method of construction lines again. Turn on your construction lines if you'd like to do it this way. That's totally fine. Lock your object lines so they get dim. And what did I do? I needed to find a point that was 1 inch over this way, and from here 2 inches over this way. Now I'm going to go ahead and unlock my object lines and draw a line from that point to that point. Okay, and oops, it's on the wrong layer. Use match properties. Click once. You click, says what's the source object? It's the object line layer. What do I want to make? The destination object. I just click that and I'm done. And sometimes you can carefully make sure that you are not grabbing, when you click those construction lines, that the whole thing doesn't light up. So I've done that. And again, I'm going to use the mirror tool because it's symmetrical. So why draw it twice if I can just do it once? Saves me a lot of line work. Okay, nope. So same exact method. All right. And now we're going to go to the side view. My construction line layer is on. That's cool. So I'm going to come over here. And again, I'm looking at the biggest version, the biggest, the overall biggest, most general shape, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. And we already know that this object, and I can come back here and confirm, is 1, 2, 3, 4 tall. So really on the side, on the right side here, I just have to go ahead and do a rectangle, okay? And you can see it's 4 steps if I do this, versus if I were to draw a rectangle like this, I can start a base point and I can say at, use the at symbol, type in 4, comma 4, okay? And when I do that, I have to go ahead and explode it so that each line is different, okay? So I'll move it, so that saved me 1 step, but however you like to do it, okay? And then the next thing is this angle right here along the side is determined how? It's determined by coming up 1 inch in the front and coming either, you could think about it, down 1 inch in the back or up 3 inches in the back, okay? So what I would do, if I offset down 1 and up 1, then I've created 2 intersections that are significant. Okay? These lines are not part of the drawing. They are just used to get me to a point. So again, if I'm having trouble visualizing, go ahead and put what's not there on the construction line layer. And now all you have to do is connect from 1 in the front of the side view, front of the side view, to 1 down along the top. And that's done, okay? If I were to take this entire object again, and I'll just simply go back to the point. Oops, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to copy it. If I wanted to, again, take this whole thing and just, if that method of construction lines is easier for you, go ahead and select this, put it on D, or go ahead and lock the layer first, okay, and then come down and turn on your construction line layer, okay. So now I could come up from here. Oops, that line shouldn't have been there. Because remember, I was going back to the part where I just had the 4x4 base object, okay. So I'm going to lock this again, and I'm on the construction line layer, and we've already said to get this point here in space, we need to come up 1 inch, okay? And to get this point in space again, we need to come down 1 inch, okay? Now I can go ahead and turn my object line layer back on, okay? And go ahead and draw that line and connect the dots from the end point of that 1 inch to the end point of that 1 inch, okay? And sometimes when you do, again, when you click here on this construction line I want to get rid of, it would select the whole thing. So if you do lock that layer, you'll ensure that that is not going to happen. Okay, so it's 2 methods of doing the same thing. Okay, now the final thing, let's talk about text. If you haven't drawn text, if you are using my template, all you have to do is come up to the A for multi-line text, and you come in here and you just draw a text box. Okay, and I'm going to put my text box like right here. This is one thing I keep saying to people. It is all caps in engineering and construction. So we're going to look at this and I'm going to type in top. Okay, I will be taking points off for that in these drawings because it's just the way it is. Okay, and what I'm going to do now is that text looks a little bit small. Maybe I want it 50% bigger. So I click it, I right click, I click scale, and I'm going to pick right in the middle of the word. If I want it 50% bigger, well, the same size as 1, so I'll type in 1.5, and that enlarged my text. Make sure it's not crowding your words or your object, or that it's not too far away, or that it's not too big. I'm going to select this because remember I said this should be on the dimension line or on the dimension layer. And rather than doing this process over and over and getting different size text and forgetting how big I made it and everything else and having to go back to set that text up, I'm just going to go ahead and copy my text, okay? And I can see like right here, oh, that's not the same distance over, but how could I ensure that it is? Okay, I could go ahead and just copy this now, and if I do it with polar on, it puts it at that same distance, maintains it. So I know that all I have to do is click here, it brings up a text editor, I change that word to front, Okay, this is one of those things that annoys me, and I think it's a neatness type of thing. Um, Slide it over. It takes 2 seconds. And then I know that this is the right. Don't say that it's the side, because that changes, right? It could be the right side, the left side, and go ahead and move this over slightly. One other thing is when you click text, you get this arrow. This is the size of this is based on the size of the original text box I made. I like to go ahead and shrink these things in. Okay, and the reason is you'll find later in some other kinds of drawings, the object snaps can actually grab the end of these text boxes and give you some grief. Okay, so this is the perfect drawing, completely sound as a pound, totally done. And I'm not going to go through snipping and pasting, but we that's how we want to go ahead and submit it. So good luck. And again, just as your checks and balances, I've mentioned, when you're in algebra, for instance, if you get an answer from a problem, okay, if you plug that answer back in for X, you can always test that the problem is correct, right? That you've done everything the right way. And in that same way, you still have that same check and balance. When I line everything up like I did with the construction line, right? Top should be over front. Front and side should be next to each other. This is the format, right? That it's always going to be. If I was drawing the left side, left would be over here and front would be right here. Okay. And top is always above front. So this is the exact format that we want. But the thing about it, again, if I drew those construction lines and aligned everything, I should be able to see very quickly that the length of the top, or the width of the top, is identical to the width of the front. If they're different sizes, if the width of these are different, then something's wrong. If I again look back between the front and the right, okay, the height of the front is exactly the same as the right. Okay, this object doesn't grow or shrink depending on what side of it I'm standing on. So hopefully that helps. I will post this, and if you watch it, I think step by step. Again, I did it with 2 different methods. Pick the one that works for you. But again, pay attention to these couple of things: alignment, making sure the lengths and widths and heights are the same, that they all correspond back to this. Make sure that you are on object line layers for the actual object. Make sure you are on the dimension layer for the text. Make sure the text is nice and neat. Definitely make sure it's in all capital letters, and that the size is clear, that it's not overwhelming or that it's not microscopic. Okay. Good luck with it, and we'll show you number 2 coming up.